Good morning.
And good afternoon.
I am heading to work.
And I'm kind of inside because it's kind of cold and I don't want to be outside.
And this is a sound sample of how these sound outside.
And yeah, I'm just going to give you my takes on how these sound and feel indoors because I don't feel like bearing the cold and 𝐓𝐾𝐒 already had to go out. So you'll see some switching in perspectives between us throughout this review, but we should probably talk about what we're talking about. So these are the GoFree 2s by Soundpeats. Different than the Run Frees that we did earlier. Check that review above. But the Run Frees we really liked a lot because of the open sound stage, overall battery life, and really good for working out. The biggest stuff that we had issues with was sort of adjustability and driver placement, as well as the band in the back was kind of cumbersome for certain activities. So having these new ones in hand that don't have the band hopefully will give us a little bit better results. So let's talk about overall fit and feel first. When we put these on, these sound pretty good. I mean, feel pretty good. They are very lightweight. There's not that much on them. And because they don't have that band, they don't feel like they're weighing you back too much. Other thing that's really nice is because of this weight in the back, they're pretty well balanced. And then the other thing that's nice is that they kind of fit in a little bit better. So you can kind of like push that driver closer to your ear, and then that weight in the back can be adjusted to sort of leave it in place. It's not fully bendable like I would want something like this to be, so I could keep that driver close to ear, but it is better than what we've seen on other workout headphones that have this sort of spatial audio feature. Wow, as I'm getting music, I forgot that I have all the touch controls. Touch controls are very good on these as well. Again, this is better than the Run Frees because they don't have the button. Again, the button is nice for security and you don't get mispresses, but they had a lot of travel. They were a little bit spongy, even though they sounded clicky. It's just you had to really push into them to get the function you wanted. These ones are touch controls. The biggest thing is that they're super sensitive. So like going through workouts and all that sort of stuff, you know, if you're trying to adjust the headphone to make it fit a little bit better, you might literally just change your tracks, pause your tracks, and not understand what's going on. So really emphasize using the side when trying to readjust these, and then just push them in that way rather than use like, you know, what your instincts would tell you to do, just because you won't mess around your tracks and all that sort of stuff. But again, overall placement of the driver is a lot better than the Run Frees, as well as the overall comfort is a lot better too. The thing that I will say is that fatigue also doesn't become an issue with these guys as much because that band is not kind of like weighing it back, and so you don't get as much pressure on the top of your ear as you do on the Run Frees. And because these things are so nicely sensitive, again, while I said that was a con before, we've had other headphones from other companies that when I'm clicking it, it's really annoying because there's no sort of backing to it, where I had to like really press hard or I had to tap really hard to get a confirmation. These ones, I don't actually have to slam anything into my ear. They will actually behave the way I want them to. So the responsiveness of these guys are awesome, and that's something that should not be discounted or like overseen because a lot of people do it wrong. So I'm glad that Soundpeats were able to put some reactivity into their controls. When we talk about controls, they have a decent plethora of options there for you so that you don't really have to pick up your phone, and this is not very common for all headphones, although that companies have started picking this up so that it is a little bit more convenient, especially if you're on the go, don't want to pull out your phone or working out. So for the Soundpeats, you get a double tap to play pause. You get a single tap to change volume. Left and right are different. So I think left is lower volume, right is higher volume, and it's the same thing with your tracks with a hold function, where your next track is a hold on the right and a previous track or start from the beginning is a hold on the left. So pretty, you know, left to right functions when you think about the timeline, but I do like how functional they are, as well as the fact that like when out and about, I don't have to bring out my phone, especially because it's getting colder. I do not want to have to whip that out. I can just press with this. They also work with gloves. So as long as they're thin enough, they seem to work. I had some thin leather gloves. I could still use the touch functions. But obviously if you have like a bigger mitten, wool, it might not work as well. So something to keep a caveat there as things get colder and you guys want to use these later. Obviously, working this day to day, you're going to have that spatial awareness. These are not isolated, so you will be hearing things coming in, But the thing that's nice about these is that the volume has been improved on these compared to the run frees. With the run frees, you're running basically 100%, 90 to 100% all the time, because if you want to really get soaked into your music or really zoned into your music, you need to have those higher volumes, especially when you're outdoors, especially when it's windy. Like, it just wasn't useful in certain scenarios. However, when using this in the office, we were able to do things as low as 40 or 50%. And it was really nice because I think 𝐸𝐸𝐾𝐒 liked it because she could hear people around her, and she would get, she never had to worry about not hearing someone in office. While, like other headphones, even with transparency mode, you might miss it depending on how good that transparency is. Obviously, it's a little bit more natural. It doesn't, plug up your eardrums and get fatigue from that. So it's just like nice open feeling, no overheating. So this is a nice option actually to the office. And the only thing you have to really worry about is that sound leakage. You can't get too high. Definitely people can hear around you. But, if you're in a little bit more like off to the side setting and you want something that's going to be very, very comfortable throughout the day, these will actually work pretty well. And there is multi-point that is available for this. You can connect 2 devices, and setting it up is pretty easy. However, it's not as seamless as other devices out there. You definitely have to play and pause on different things to make sure that it's recognized. So I've tested this with me and 𝐸𝐸𝐾𝐒's phones at the same time. Usually when I'm going between devices, if I play one on a device that's not currently playing, it'll switch over, and vice versa. So like, again, if I am listening to music on my laptop, my phone comes through, usually devices are able to pick that up and then transfer that priority. However, for this one, I feel like I had to pause what I was currently doing so that I could activate it on the other one. And there was like maybe a 5-second lag before volume would actually catch up and play music or play media from the other device. So multi-point is present, just not the most seamless thing that I've seen out there. Since we're talking about working outdoors, let's go over to an indoor mic sample so you guys can hear how the microphones sound for conferencing and things like that. So here's a sound sample that I promised you guys. I do want to show you guys the weather a bit. In Boston, it's currently like rainy and windy. It's a little bit gross. Obviously, that's the reason why I'm not super motivated to go outside. But in terms of this sound sample, it's pretty nice. This is something you could use for conferencing relatively well. And again, it's nice to not have to be so sucked in with the earbuds and the isolation, and just be able to hear my own voice. So I know if I'm talking too loud, or if there's someone around me. It's just nice having that. So for conferencing, these are super comfortable. And as well as that, it has a 9-hour battery. So even if I was on call all day, got extended a little bit, I could make it through a whole workday pretty easily. And I think you get, 4 more charges out of it? Or is it 3 more charges? It's 3 more charges. So 3 more charges. So even if you are getting super extended, you can get a quick charge inside the case, and that should run you pretty far. So you probably get a few days, half a work week, most of your work week if you're not in calls a lot, without charging. So just depends on how much you use it, but overall, super good for work. Obviously, as you go outdoors, you're going to have a lot more environmental distractions, things that will get you out of your music. And with the run freeze, we're having a lot of big issues with that, especially if it was windy. You're at 90 to 100%, and still you're not being able to hear your music very well. However, with the GoFree 2s, they've increased the volume, as we've aforementioned, and it's really something that you can behave like a normal headphone, like at 70 to 80% with bad sound pollution around. And that's something that I'm going to show you guys with 𝐸𝐸𝐾𝐒, because she told me about that, and we're going to get an outdoor sound sample while we're at it.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is what these headphones sound outdoors. Right now, there's not much noise around, but earlier there was a lot of construction. There were people talking around me. And even at nighttime, you want to have really good spatial awareness of what's going on around you. And these really fit the bill when it comes to that. So I really love them for that. I will say, though, the fit is really, really comfortable. I love that they're fitted to my ear in a way that doesn't feel like it's constricting, and there's no band in the back that can get stuck on something else. So I love that. Also, for volume, I don't have to up the volume really loudly because I can hear the music or whatever I'm listening to really clearly. So huge plus overall for them. One improvement or item that you should keep in mind is that there's no auto shut off on these, so you actually manually need to go through and disconnect these headphones if you want to stop using them. So something to keep in mind for you, but overall, this is how these sound outdoors for you to know moving forward.
So as we're here judging 𝐸𝐸𝐶 and her workouts, what I will say is that she did mention that these were a lot more comfortable when running, doing rows and cardio, because there was not as much bounce going on with the band in the back. These also, because of the weight and how they built their clamp, fits very nice and snug to the ear, so it's not kind of jostling around even when you're doing change of directions or high jumps and things like that, that other headphones with this form factor kind of struggle with. So Soundpeats have done a good job of constructing something that is good and solid for runners and active people. So the run frees, we had a bunch of issues doing bench presses and overhead workouts, but since they've removed the band on the GoFrees, there's not that issue. I don't have to worry about the band smacking against my neck and pushing drivers off my head, or going overhead and having a band or a dumbbell get snagged on the band and push the headphones off my head. It was just a lot better to do workouts overall because that comfort was better, as well as there's no form factor to sort of distract you from your workout. So 𝐸𝐸𝐶 got in the cardio, but we weren't able to test distance because obviously her gym isn't so big. And I haven't unpacked my winter stuff to actually work out in crappy weather yet, so we haven't taken this to the field. But what I will say is that these are 5.3, and these are from Soundpeats. So based on all of the other Soundpeats things that we've tested, these have easily been able to get through a full football field. So like 100 yards, 300 feet, however you want to look at it, it's able to be super far from the source and still be able to maintain a connection when in open air. So if you're doing field workouts, or if you're just running around the gym and want to keep your phone in your bag and not have it like mess you up, then you can do that. And again, with all of the controls that are on the headphone already, you don't really need your phone on you. So I think that's going to be a really good convenience for a lot of people that are going to be working out with me. I'm noticing when looking at the footage that 𝐸𝐸𝐶 gave me is that she's not breathing through her workouts. So if you guys could do me a favor and leave a comment about how she should breathe while she's doing her lifts so she doesn't pass the fuck out, that would be extremely appreciated by me, so that I have a conscious girlfriend. However, yes, please tell her she needs to do better. Okay, so now 𝐸𝐸𝐶's done the workouts for us. Let's talk about sound. And I want to start with video and sound together because sometimes latency is an issue. It is not with Soundpeats in general, but for these headphones, they reacted very well with YouTube videos. They reacted very well with streaming services. So if you want to, play a podcast in the background, or if you want to watch a movie in bed, you shouldn't have any issues with lag on that. And you can use LDAC without any issues. I've had other headphones in the past with like the higher quality codecs that you're using for high quality sound. Doesn't work well with video, and it starts getting all out of sync and gross, and you don't even know what's going on. You have to like turn that setting off. For this one, you can kind of seamlessly go between your high resolution tracks and your videos without lag and movement of lips and things like that. So overall, I think that's a very nice thing. It obviously has a game mode, 60 seconds latency. I have done a few games on here. I don't have anything that would push the limits on this, but 60 seconds is pretty solid for latency. I'm pretty sure all of your things you're normally used to, like your AirPods Pro and stuff like that, have like almost double that, but I'll put the number here. But the latency is going to be very good in game mode at 60 seconds, and it should be able to keep up with all of you that are like hardcore gamers and play like FPSs on your mobile device. I'm not one of those people, but I do play a few different games that just have some matchmaking. I've never really had any issues. So like with Bullet Time or what others, or Mech Arena, those haven't really had any big issues with like gunshots sounding out of place, or like sounds coming, like just not being synced up where they should be. So it sounds really nice for that perspective. Let's get into what you guys probably care about the most, and that's sound quality. Obviously, with that LDAC I mentioned before, if you guys have like Amazon Music or Deezer or anything that has high quality tracks, the LDAC will be able to activate that for you and give you the most out of your wireless experience in terms of quality. Other thing I want to mention here is that there is their own EQ system here. So you can either do it yourself, you can use classic, or you can use adaptive. And for me, adaptives work pretty well with these Soundpeats headphones, so it is something that I set up. I will say when you're doing that adaptive, it's a little bit harder than their earbuds, because obviously you don't have that seal. So when you're trying to listen to those higher frequencies, you're trying to listen for different decibel levels, you're not going to hear as much as you normally would with a isolated headphone. So you do have to be in a very quiet room and figure it out, like just like really try to zap into what is being played so you get the best performance. I don't think that for me I got the best tuning out of it. However, I did want to do it because generally if something sounds wonky on the soundtrack, I can, or just with the classic EQ, I can use the adaptive to get me a little bit different signature that is a little bit more palatable. So that's something I do with all Soundpeats. I think that you guys should do that as well, but it really just depends on what type of headphone you're using. For these open ears, I'll give you what my sound curve kind of look like, and it looks different, completely different than what I did with like the Air 4 Pros. So take this with a grain of salt, but I will talk about the differences on both of them. So for the overall sound, I think it sounds really nice. Like because of the openness, it just sounds very pleasant. There's a lot of nice separation because of that extra air, and things sound nicely layered. Again, obviously, if you have a lot of distractions and things like that, it might get in the way of seeing those different instruments. But when you're sitting in your room, you can hear those instruments, and I really like that. So Dollar by Electric Guest was a really good intro sample that I wanted to use because they have so many instruments, and it just sounded so nice layering on the elements. And the classic EQ is probably the best for this, to really get that open sound with all of those elements. The things that I want to talk about is when we're talking about adaptive. Adaptive, for me, at least with that setting that I set, was really nice for synth things that needed a little bit more energy, so it's really good for EDM, but you got to be really picking and choosing when you want to use it, because it kind of brings everything, or at least for my EQ, it brought everything forward more, so it's really good at bringing the vocals forward, the trebles forward, but it will kind of affect the overall mix of the song. So for like Goon Squad by Ripe, vocals were super like alright, because he's not like the most powerful singer, but they definitely, like on the classic mode, they took a back seat. Putting adaptive did bring him forward more, but then it also made the horns override everything. So there's elements where they start having like a really strong attacking horn, and it starts overpowering and gets a little bit harsh, not to lie. But then as you go into the interlude where the song kind of slows down, it's super pretty. Like when it starts like bringing down all of the elements, just it's mostly vocals and lighter instruments, and then they do the build up. That was super nice. I really liked that in adaptive mode as well. But again, once they got into full swing, adaptive kind of got weird. So classic was probably the best way to go for this song. Where it's great is when you don't have vocals. So adaptive is great for bringing a lot more power. So when we did Reverie by Polyphia, this just brought all the instruments like to be a little bit more attacky, and I like that. It had nice separation, all of that sort of like the bass lines and things like that didn't get overpowered by the lead guitar. And again, I think it's nice because since there's no vocals to sort of compete with it, all those instruments could shine together, and that was nice. So if you're listening to something that's just more instrumental, I think you'll do a lot better with the adaptive settings that I had. Then I heard that female vocalists don't perform very well with these ones. However, I really didn't feel that. I think for SZA, she's not the most powerful singer, but she still sounded very, very nice on this. I think she shined really nice on these headphones with that sort of vibe that she has. I think it's just very smooth in how she sings, and I think these headphones really bring that out. Adaptive was nice at bringing her more forward, but then, you know, the classic was a little bit more mellow. So I did kind of like this more. I like both because I do like her voice, but I think for this kind of song, the mellow vibe was nicer, so classic kind of ended up being better. Jasmine by DPR Live. This is kind of where I started seeing a little bit of harshness with adaptive, and I really started identifying where that happened. So just because they bring in a couple different voices, but when I put in adaptive, just how they sing just came off harsh and adaptive, but bringing that into classic kind of mellowed everything out and put everything a little bit more equally balanced. And then it also helped the backup vocals have a little bit more staying power. So in classic, it was just a little bit more holistic, where you could see all of the elements instead of like take a backseat to the main vocalist. So that was nice. This is where I think that adaptive is really good, is something that's like EDM. So like Symphony by Clean Bandit, I think there was very minimal difference. I actually kind of like the adaptive better because it brought in more energy. It was louder without extra volume. So, and then the separation there was still there. I could still hear the synth, I could still hear the bass, I could still hear all the elements, and nothing was getting overdrowned. And I think that's just like something about the EDM will work well with these headphones. So even if you go adaptive, it'll be fine. So I think Holy by Justin Bieber and Chance the Rapper was where I started feeling the difference between classic and adaptive for me, or like at least defining it more specifically by the end of my listening session. So in terms of the classic, it's gonna be better to make things a little bit more mellow and a little bit more separated. Like this is the mode that I kind of liked most of the song. It was more full. It was just more cohesive together, and it didn't feel like I was just isolating the vocals. And it seemed less like a chamber, while the classic really just gave it a full body, a thickness, if you will. However, at the end, when they drop the bass and then they start introducing the choir, it starts off like just an a cappella almost with some light instruments, and they do a build up into the choir hit. That's where adaptive was like much different, and it was just like a lot more impactful, and it just made the song end so nicely that like it's hard for me to pick one or the other. Like most of the song I like classic, but then at the very end, like I would want to just switch to adaptive to get that last bit of power. But again, we'll give you guys some samples. I'll add both classic and adaptive, so you guys can have an understanding here. Obviously I won't be able to use copyright music, but I'll give you some chill hop stuff so that you guys can hopefully get what I'm talking about. So obviously these are easy to recommend. There's only really two major things that I could think that people might have an issue with. The first one being that they don't isolate and they don't have ANC. But you know, they have natural transparency and all that sort of stuff. But if you're looking for that isolation and really get locked into your sound with no sort of distractions, I don't know why you're looking at these headphones. These are for people that need that spatial awareness and want a little bit more open feeling headphone. They're not for the people that are trying to like zone out their life. So if you're using it for their intended purposes, these are perfect. The other thing that I think people might not like is this case. Obviously it's a little bit of a chunker. They did a good job about slimming it out, but it is like a little bit fatty on the sort of face front, but you really can't get around that. I mean, if you look at the headphone, it has to compensate for that form factor, and you really can't get around that. So it's not going to be as nice and small and sleek as your traditional earbuds, but that's kind of what you get with these. But a lot of battery in the case, so you will be able to charge your work week no problem. So obviously these are an easy recommendation. I think you guys should pick these up. I believe they're under $50 right now, so like around $40. An easy thing to try out and make sure it works for your life. If you guys have any questions, or if you want to get a little bit of a discount, check the description below. Add things on the comments. I'll respond to you guys so that you can see if these are the right ones for you. Anyway, I appreciate you guys sticking around with the video. If you could, please like, subscribe, comment, do all things that you normally do on a video that you like and love. And thank you to my OGs. You guys have been awesome in engaging with me this year, and you've been helping me work with all of these nice companies that send me stuff. You know, I don't got to do stuff out of pocket anymore. So it's really cool to be able to pick up some stuff that I would never normally pick up and try stuff out. Like, I never would have thought about workout headphones that are not isolating, but they ended up being some of my favorite stuff that I reviewed this year. So thank you guys so much for opening up those opportunities, and hopefully we can do more in the future. As always, appreciate ya. Peace.